So then another little point that we had was that in the study, towards the end, the consent forms ended up getting altered, and those agreements weren't really honored. So like I said, we had makeup surgeries, or sham surgeries were performed, but they said in the consent forms, if you do end up having a sham surgery, you will have the opportunity to have a makeup surgery if you so choose. But eventually that changed, and the PSMB board, the Performance and Safety Monitoring Board, and the NIH said that they saw some things that needed to change, and so they altered that. So some of the things that happened were some adverse events.
Yeah, kind of what she was talking about, like the adverse events, they primarily happened in the group that got the real surgery. So that was something that was kind of flagged by the PSMB, even though some of these adverse events were like, they're just old, or their life circumstances, not necessarily related to the surgery. Another thing we noticed was like the variability of outcomes between the older and the younger groups. But Dr. Freed followed some of his patients like years out and noticed that the older group that didn't seem to be getting very much of a benefit in the study, actually, if they were given more time, let their neurons grow a little bit more, then they actually were able to see benefits in them as well, which was really interesting. And then just kind of like looking to the future, like how do you think that the consents could have been improved?
Yeah, I think that the issue, so based off of the issue, how it could have been improved was that ultimately the informed consent that happened at the beginning of the study ended up not being informed consent, and it was falsified due to the changes on later. They were not aware of that. So I think that a good change that could have been done and could be done in the future is if the PSMB and the NIH are saying, hey, just so you know, we're going to monitor these events if they happen, and we might put a hold on certain things or whatever, that needs to be in the consent form, and that needs to be part of their informed consent. Because I bet you anything that if those patients and research subjects knew that they possibly could have not been able to have access or even know that they had a sham procedure or have access to a makeup surgery, that they would have signed those documents and participated in the study. I think that a lot of them would have dropped out. And so they were kind of falsely led, not by Dr. Freed, but specifically that wasn't put into the consent form of that could be a possibility.
Yeah, totally. And like if they had just changed it to say like, yeah, after we get all of the study results in and see if it's beneficial for you, then you'll get your surgery. That would have been informed consent instead of changing it mid-game, like you were saying. Yeah. Okay, so kind of switching gears a little bit, talking about Christian integration, kind of like I was thinking about like, what does it mean to be a good doctor? What does it mean to live that out as a Christian, especially? Especially in our world where Christians get doxxed for about anything, and people are looking for things to get mad at us about, we kind of came to the conclusion that as Christians, we should be above reproach. We should be being the best doctor out there, and then let them know, oh yeah, by the way, we're Christians, and have that as the standard of we want to be the best, and then let them know that we're Christians so that that can speak for our faith instead of pulling our faith into it and dragging down the Christian faith by being a bad doctor.
Yeah, for sure. So I think a prime example of that is Dr. Robert Ayanako. I think that I'm saying that right. He, to us, was a prime example of someone that kind of was a hypocrite in that way, and we feel that before he totally changed his beliefs, when he was performing these surgeries, he went to China, was pretty unethical in our opinion of how he was performing these procedures, wasn't really giving informed consent because he didn't really inform them that he didn't really know fully what he was doing. I mean, he had hair and teeth growing inside someone's brain that probably led to their death, even though he didn't admit that. And so with his history of that, he eventually went later on, became a Christian, became anti-abortion. So a lot of people were like, that's a very interesting turn of events. And also we thought it was pretty crazy that he eventually in his clinic or surgery would have a poster of Jesus like guiding surgeon hands. So it was saying that Jesus was guiding his work basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so to a lot of people it's like, okay, how was Jesus guiding your hands while you were performing these outrageous procedures?
Mm-hmm.
And so that really violated autonomy because they didn't have informed consent in that way, wasn't having beneficence, and ultimately wasn't really showing how we can be above reproach as a doctor.
Yeah, totally. And another kind of Christian integration viewpoint we noticed was that we think that Christians can participate in fetal tissue research just because of all of the religious couples that were participating in the study. They didn't make that decision flippantly. They took it to their mentors, took it to their pastors, got advice from these knowledgeable people, and they came to the conclusion that they were able to participate in the study. They prayed about it, they wrestled with it, and they didn't make that decision flippantly.
Mm-hmm.
So we just thought that was an interesting point of like, as Christians, like we can all have different views about personhood. We can all view these different things differently,
Mm-hmm.
but can come to the conclusion that we can participate in this. And if you don't, then you don't have to.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, and based off of that, we can draw the conclusion from what she said that, we shouldn't judge, not knowing exactly people's intentions or what their heart really contains. And so our conclusion is that Dr. Breeze and Dr. Freed really were good people, good doctors. They had good intentions. They tried their very best to care about both animals and people, tried to limit the number of apes they were experimenting on, were very meticulous with perfecting their procedures and how they should do the double-blind study. And so we don't really think that the issues lied with these researchers or the doctors that wrote this book or were involved in this, but it was, with other things like the PSMB or the NIH.
Mm-hmm. And kind of the main point of all of this, like the main bioethical issue at the heart, kind of like what we were saying earlier, was, is it wrong to use fetal tissue for research? And we kind of concluded that it wasn't in the end, because using it for good and trying to turn good from evil is a good thing in the end.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where we landed.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.